She is well recognized for her humorous roles on The Mary Tyler Moore Show and The Golden Girls, among other comedies. By now, you've probably figured out the name. Betty White is the only one who knows. Welcome back to another video. We'll be delving into the facts about Betty White in today's episode. Please subscribe to our channel and enable the bell symbol to be notified before beginning. Let's get this video started, shall we? Betty White was a great American comedian. She was the first female entertainer on television and had the longest career of any female entertainer. She had a long and fruitful career that spanned 7 decades. Because of her charming grin and superb comic timing, White was adored and followed by millions. Tributes to Betty White's life and career are still being paid in honor of her 100th birthday, and it almost goes without saying how well liked she is. Betty was always there, regardless of your age. She has been a constant and comforting presence, whether hosting a game show or sparking laughs on a sitcom. If you were a fan of Betty White, we've compiled a list of 18 fascinating facts about her life. Number 1. Betty Marion White was born in the state of Illinois in 1922. Tess and Horace White moved her to Los Angeles, California when she was 2 years old. Her mother was a stay-at-home mom while her father worked for a lighting firm. Number 2. Betty got her first Hollywood work in a Parquet margarine commercial in 1939. She hung out in producer Fran Van Hartesvelt's office until he offered her a job in a commercial. Betty's first odd jobs on the radio included reading advertising, playing little parts, and even generating crowd noises, despite her best efforts to earn a career in Hollywood. She then made her debut on Hartesvelt's radio show, The Great Gildersleeve. She'd never taken acting classes because she was so talented. Number 3. Betty White had 3 marriages. Dick Barker, a United States Army Air Force pilot, was her first husband in 1945. Dick Barker, Betty White's first spouse, was a United States Army Air Force pilot. After World War II, the pair got married. He desired a simple existence, but White did not agree, and they divorced the next year. Lane Allen, a Hollywood talent agent, was Betty's second husband in 1949. They split because Allen desired to start a family, while White desired to pursue a career. Alan Ludden, a television broadcaster and personality, was her third and longest marriage, which began in 1963. He asked her to marry him twice before she said yes. In 1961, they met on his game program Password. Number 4. During World War II, Betty White joined the American Women's Voluntary Services to do her part in the war effort. She was assigned the task of transporting military supplies. She was issued a uniform and given the job of driving a PX truck full of supplies around the Hollywood Hills. She was cited as stating, "Those were strange times." Number 5. Rue McClanahan was cast in the role that made her famous, and she was intended to portray Blanche. Neither actress, however, wanted to be typecast. They asked the creators of Golden Girls to let them switch roles. The Golden Girls was a popular television drama that followed the lives of 4 divorced or widowed women in their golden years. They lived together in Miami. Betty White, Bea Arthur, Estelle Getty, and Rue McClanahan featured in the series, which was the greatest hit at the time. Betty was cast as Blanche and Rue McClanahan as Rose in the show. They did not want to be stereotyped, so they asked the producers to exchange their parts because the 2 roles were identical to those they had previously done in Mary Tyler Moore and Maude. Number 6. In the popular program The Golden Girls, Rose Nyland, Betty White's character, had a brush with HIV. Rose was the center of the 1990 episode 72 Hours, which followed her discovery that a blood transfusion she had received earlier may have exposed her to HIV. This episode of The Golden Girls attempted to address a delicate issue at the time. AIDS and HIV were taboo topics, and many individuals had misconceptions about the condition. Rose and Blanche use smart dialogue to persuade others that HIV is not a bad person's sickness and God does not want to punish anyone for their misdeeds. Rose receives a letter in 72 hours informing her that she may have contracted HIV from a blood transfusion 6 years after gallbladder surgery. She is encouraged to get tested, and as she waits for the results, a critical moment between Rose and Blanche takes place, in which they attempt to communicate a message to the audience about HIV/AIDS. Number 7. Betty White headlined The Betty White Show for 4 years, 5.5 hours a day, 6 days a week. From 1949 through 1953, the show was broadcast on television. She began co-hosting this show alongside Al Jarvis at first. Nevertheless, after he left in 1952, she was the show's sole host. During each broadcast, she made a point of singing a few songs. Number 8. Racism was not something Betty White supported. She refused to remove a black dancer, Arthur Duncan, from her television performance in 1954, instead offering him additional airtime. First Lady of Television, according to Arthur Duncan. She gave this tap dancing sensation his first television break and even granted him more airtime, much to the chagrin of the show's Southern affiliates. Duncan was invited to appear on this show for 3 episodes, but it was quickly discontinued due to the commotion it had caused. She was later chastised for it, and the show was quickly canceled. Many Southern affiliates objected when the show went national, and Betty remarked, "I'm sorry, but live with it." Number 9. Betty White reportedly turned down a position in As Good as It Gets because of a scene in which a puppy was thrown down a trash chute. White was an animal lover who did not want to be identified with animal abuse. She said in an interview that if she hadn't gone into acting, she would have been a zookeeper. Betty likes visiting zoos when on vacation. Betty White is also a longtime board member and substantial donor to the Los Angeles Zoo. Number 10. Betty White has a lengthy and illustrious television career that spans 7 decades. In 1939, she got her first job as a singer on a groundbreaking experimental television channel. Betty White was awarded a Guinness World Record in 2014 and again in 2018 for her longest television career of any male or female entertainer. Number 12. Betty White was nominated for an Emmy Award 6 times throughout her career. Since 1995, she has also held the honorary title of Mayor of Hollywood. She also won 8 Emmys, 3 Screen Actors Guild Awards, 3 American Comedy Awards, and 1 Grammy Award. In 1995, White was inducted into the Hollywood Walk of Fame and the Television Hall of Fame. Number 13. The treatment of an elephant at the Los Angeles Zoo caused a fight between Bob Barker and Betty White. At the 2009 Game Show Awards, Bob Barker was to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. He threatened the program producers that if Betty White was present, he would not attend. White eventually decided not to attend the show and pre-recorded her remarks for another awardee, Mark Goodson. Number 14. For his realistic and inventive writings combining social observation and sympathetic humor, John Steinbeck received the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1962. Betty White and her husband Alan Luden were close friends of John Steinbeck and his wife Elaine. Elaine and Alan went to the same high school. Their connection was so strong that when Steinbeck won the Nobel Prize, he gave Luden a preliminary manuscript of his acceptance speech as a birthday present. Number 15. Betty White was awarded an honorary forest ranger status by the Forest Service in 2010. She had always wanted to be a forest ranger since she was a child, but she could not do so because women were not permitted to work in such positions at the time. Number 16. Betty White was the show's oldest star. Despite this, she outlived all of her co-stars. She was older than Sliced Bread in age. White was born in 1922 and Sliced Bread was launched in 1928. She was also the same age as Mickey Mouse. Number 17. In 2022, a Facebook and Instagram trending Betty White challenge was actually a fundraiser for animal shelters. This tendency resulted in a $12.7 million donation to animal shelters. Number 18. Betty White died 3 weeks before her 100th birthday at 99. On January 17, 2022, she was to turn 100. This brings us to the end of today's video. Please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell symbol. With the next video, I'll see you everyone. Bye-bye until then.